'Cause I think I'm on a losing streak. I can't get no We're gonna try and get some satisfaction today. This losing streak, I believe we may have started to turn the corner a little bit. Welcome to the show, Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest. And on this Tuesday now, and this is by popular demand, we're welcoming in Mike Jones. I think he's going to make this a regular thing. And the reason that it's so special is because Mike Jones is very popular here on NoFilter.net and the various other platforms where these shows are aired, including Believe and all over the planet here. He's all over the internet, Instagram, with the Big Gunner podcast, where he's dedicated to his beloved New York Giants, which is this is a guy that keeps giving a woman a second chance. No matter how ugly the relationship gets, no matter how deeply the indifference is set in, he always keeps coming back with a positive approach here, including now with the fact that, unfortunately, Jackson Dart, if he continues to play in the fashion that he has, and I think he's going to be out this week, Mike Jones, but sat out concussion protocol last week. And this guy's head is going to be on the end of his stick over a bonfire as a marshmallow if he continues to do what he's doing. But anyway, glad to have you on the program, Mike. And how you feeling? Of course, I think you passed on the entire card yesterday, and you would have gone 11-1. How's it going?
That's how it works. Yeah, no, we had Dallas. We gave out Dallas yesterday with you, so that
Yep.
was really going
Broke
away
the
with.
streak. Yes.
Yeah, I saw some people that were interested in, in the Raiders, and I kind of got a little worried. They're late. Some smart people like the Raiders, but just kind of the eye test tells you that the Raiders are kind of might be moving on from Pete Carroll at the end of this year, and that maybe this is like for the old geezers at Caesar we tell about that this is a modern game and it's changing. And you're hearing thing after thing with the Giants that there's a reason why Joe Shane's keeping his job is because he's modern technology, the scouting office where now they have new ways of collecting data, and he's modernized the whole office. And the Giants hierarch is basically happy with what he's doing on outside of picking players. But I mean, it's like he's done more for the organization internally, I guess, and that's why they're sticking with him. There's more to this story than just winning and losing on the field and looking at your roster. But I think he's under the gun a little bit in the final 7 games that we have to figure out, or 6 games that we have to figure out exactly what we have talent-wise and then what to do, because it looks like we'll be drafted in the top 5 again, which is I never thought that would happen at the beginning of the year, and especially after we beat the Chargers and you see what Jackson Dart was capable of. The defense has let us down in a couple games, and this is what happens if you don't play. You play everybody. You have 49 guys that come out on a game every week, and everybody's got to be together. It's not just a one-man game like people think in football.
It'd be nice if you had a defense. Another quarter collapse there by the New York Giants. Not quite as tragic as it's been when they've been losing double-digit leads in the fourth quarter, which was the eventual ouster of when Brian Daboll, as you couldn't accept these double-digit leads 4 times during the course of the season. I mean, why not just hire Mario Cristobal at that point and put him in place? Hey, what are the odds? Before you get into the Big Gunner thing, I was looking at a list of possible future coaching candidates for next year with the New York Giants, and there's always the possibility they stick with the interim guy if he rallies and has an impressive showing towards the end of the season. But for whatever reason, that seems unlikely. There was a top 10 list of Giant candidates that I saw. Number 10 on the list was Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick, and he has stated, which doesn't mean much, but he has stated that he's fully committed to North Carolina, and in spite of his respect for the Tisch family and the Maras and his great tenure there under Parcells when he was a very successful defensive coordinator, that he has no interest in going to the pros. The number 1 guy on the list, is this possible? Because he's number 1 on everybody's list. It was Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
Do you ever see that happening? I mean, is that even something that you could possibly conceive of, Lane Kiffin becoming the Giants head coach?
The Jay Glazer did a report on Sunday, and it was asked by Charles Woodson, what about Lane Kiffin? And he immediately knocked it that the Giants are not going to the college ranks for a coach. The thing that I worry about with this team right now in the city, high media, everything is I really want a guy with head coaching experience who's had success. So that comes down to a John Gruden, a Mike McCarthy, a Bill Belichick, somebody that's maybe has a pulse on the league, but that has had success as a head coach in the league. I don't want, Chris Shula is very nice, and the Rams get a lot out of their players, and you can't name maybe three of the 11 guys that start for them in their defense, and they're very good. But Chris Shula, as much as we love him down, the Shula family down here, I'm not interested in the Chris Shula just as a DC to come in there and fix what's broken, And it's Brandon Staley was the last success. Everybody loved him as a defensive coordinator, and he did things differently and found his way out. Yeah,
Might have been one of the worst game
Ben
days.
Johnson. Ben Johnson in Chicago's done a great job. He seems like he's fixed Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams seems to you can't get him to the ground. That's where I think his success was. I've watched the last 2 games he's played where the Giants and Minnesota both had clean shots at him throughout the game and couldn't get him to the ground, which when you make a play last longer, usually it benefits the offense, and that's where I think he's coming from. But he's also a recipient of a schedule that all 7 wins of teams with losing records. So he'll get tested this week when he plays Pittsburgh and they play a team with a winning record, although they're a 3-point favorite. And I just I'm not sure. Mike McDonald doing a nice job in the second year at Seattle, DC at Baltimore. Looks like he's doing a job. Jesse Minter from the Chargers is being talked about. Young DC to come over. I'm just not sure these are the guys I really want. Gruden, I love him, but he's got a lawsuit against the league. Probably not. McCarthy's interesting because he's had success. He won a lot of games at Dallas. He was good with young and Aaron Rodgers. Maybe he helps Jackson Dart a little bit. And you see his name pumped up a lot. I just don't know where to go, but I'm a proponent in week 3. I said this that I would want Lane Kiffin just for his relationship with Dart. I think he might want to go somewhere else. I don't know that he's going to win an SEC title or make a run to playoff at Mississippi just because there's other bigger NIL developments that go on in the conference that maybe Mississippi's not where they should be. So I don't know that he can get all the players, but he's winning there, and their defense is getting better every year. I'm a Lane Kiffin fan. I would like to see him in New York. I've said it numerous times. I get people that kind of agree a little bit, but I don't know if it's going to happen by the reports I'm hearing.
Hard to imagine that just a few years ago, and I mean a few short years ago, Lane Kiffin was at FAU, Florida Atlantic University,
Right.
as their head coach. He did have some success there. I think was it a 3-year run or 2?
Yep.
And then he was at FAU. It might have been 3, and then look what's happened since. I mean, they're giving his ex-wife the tour of Baton Rouge, of Gainesville. It's amazing how many people are groveling at their feet or on their knees to try and get Lane Kiffin to coach their team, even though he's sitting there with a 10-1 Ole Miss team that is ticketed so far for the playoffs. They did have to recover from the grave in this last game, and but there usually are at least a couple of obstacles along the way where you have to overcome something if you're going to be a championship caliber college team. And we'll get into that a little bit in just a few minutes. But in the meantime, you know what I love about you, Mike Jones? I mean, you're like Gump Horsley. You're not afraid to put the mask on there and go ahead and take a stab at hockey. And you're seeing some favorable results so far this year. What's there?
Well, what you're seeing is that there's teams that have been drafting high in hockey that have put together, on the back burner because it seems like very consistent. We know who's going to be good every year. Panthers, Edmonton have been to the playoffs. We know that the Rangers get in there last year. We know that certain teams are, good. Carolina's really good and Dallas is really good. But this year we get like the Blackhawks, the Ducks, the Sharks. They're all winning games as dogs, and they're being very competitive in these games. And I think that's really kind of a fun watch. And tonight is a very interesting game again. Calgary Flames are going into Chicago. They've been struggling most of the year. Blackhawks with a winning record, and the Blackhawks only laying 115. And I would take a crack at the Blackhawks just for the momentum that you're seeing, and maybe the disrespect that they're still getting from the line because they've been a bad team for the book for, a bet against for the book for a couple of years now. So that's a kind of game I'm looking at. In basketball, I kind of think the Hawks are playing pretty well. They're 9-5. They're coming home tonight to play Detroit after a good back-to-back. Me and my guys that we talked in basketball last year felt Detroit would make that jump up to the top 4 elites in the East, and now they have the top record in the East. I just think normally I would go against the idea of a team off a long road trip. That's one of my bet against too is when a team comes home relaxed. But Atlanta's played very well, and I don't know that I would bet against them tonight. I kind of like them a little bit. And
kind of a forgotten team.
Yeah, and they were down 20 in the fourth quarter against Phoenix the other night. Just played well and came back and beat them. And they're doing this without Trae Young. So I mean, you're just seeing teams that are developing and doing things different in the league. But I kind of like to find the team, as you know this, that it's more dog than favorite, and no one's really caring about. And they just keep covering and making moves, even though they might not win a bunch of games and and all that. But right now you're looking at the class of the league. It's OKC is pretty much they're going to get close to the spread every week or cover. Last night was a very interesting game where they were up 25-30 early on and lost the cover by 17 and a half. And yeah, so they were playing 17 and a half on the road to the Pelicans and then didn't cover. So that was kind of very interesting. Watching that happen last night was kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, I was looking at some streaks in the NBA. Detroit, of course, which you could see this coming, and maybe we should have laid some heavy money on Detroit. I don't know that it's going to turn out this way to at least win the Eastern Conference. You would have to think they're in there with a shot. They've won 10 in a row. They are now 12-2 on the season, 10 straight wins. Cade Cunningham, who we thought was kind of a brick as a number one overall pick, you thought, oh my God, I mean, how unfortunate can this franchise be? We're good friends with a former Heat player who played 15 years in the league. He comes on our other shows many times, a guy named Grant Long, who is part of the broadcast team for the Detroit Pistons. He does their pre and post game shows and does a lot of broadcasts around the actual games. And we were always so sympathetic to Grant, saying, geez, it seems like even when they are in a position to draft some generational player, it turns out there is none available when they have the number one overall pick. We saw them get hosed a couple of times in the draft lottery where they had the worst record and they end up picking sixth. But Cunningham has more than acquitted himself as being worthy of being a number one overall pick. And we saw what they did in the postseason last year. And we thought, wow, I mean, with the injuries that took place to Halliburton and Jason Tatum in the Eastern Conference, why not Detroit? I bet you could have gotten a pretty good price on them. Too late now, my friend.
Yeah.
Too late now because
Yeah.
people are aware that they're a pretty good team. Atlanta's won 5 in a row. Toronto's won 4 in a row. I don't know how they're doing against the spread.
Yeah, Toronto was a good one last night. I would have had one of my losers. I would have had Toronto, and they were up most of the game and ended up winning by 2. Made some blocks at the buzzer, but they have, they're another team that's drafted well. Scotty Barnes, they made some trades, and they have players there that are playing well together. And I think, like even in hockey and all sports, not so much in football we don't see it, but if you keep drafting high, something's going to change, especially in hockey and the NBA. That eventually these players will hit, and then you end up doing it. Yeah, I mean, it just takes a little bit of time.
It doesn't always happen. I mean, the process in Philadelphia was the longest process ever.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at the Washington Wizards. My God, losers of 11 in a row. And look, they've been in positions to acquire players and can't seem to ever get it right. Indiana, of course, suffering without Halliburton. Have lost 8 straight. Sacramento, New Orleans, another team that should be a lot better. Both of those teams have lost 6 in a row in the NBA. So NBA slate tonight has a reasonable number of games going. I don't know if any of these really stand out to you. But anything on that NBA slate?
Yeah, I mean, Portland's coming off a road trip, and they're playing. Portland's got the Phoenix, coming off that bad, horrific loss Sunday night. So I kind of like Phoenix a little bit. They're getting 2. Like I said, the Hawks now dropped. They were 1.5-point dog. Now they're a pick 'em. So someone's seeing what else in Memphis and San Antonio. Wembanyama's out with a calf strain. Memphis hasn't been playing too well. 4-10. This might be a game that gets right, getting a 6-point dog. Celtics going on the road, laying 11. Michael Porter showed up for the Nets. That's a big, it's a buckets. The Nets get their second win this weekend, blowing out Washington and Washington. Not saying much, but the Celtics laying 11 on the road is a 7-7 team. That might be a price you might want to take a look at if you like home dog, getting a big number. It's harder for the modern day guy to bet a 2-11 team, but they cover. The covers are there, so you might get lucky with 11 with the Nets tonight. Just a little quick overview of what I see in the NBA.
All right. And we do have some college football going tonight. I got Western Michigan, Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois was a darling when we first discovered the high scoring of the MAC conference. This has to go back about 15 years. We were constantly cashing on these Tuesday night games with Illinois. And the overs, they've fallen on a bit of hard times. They take on Western Michigan. Western Michigan favored by 5 and a hook. Ohio is a 33.5-point favorite over probably the worst team in college football, possibly UMass. Got Bowling Green in action, 3.5-point favorites over the Akron Zips, who've been up and down. We made a score with the Zips one week, courtesy of your buddy Doug Kazarian, who thought that they would clobber UMass, which they did. They came back the subsequent week when, of course, now I was on top of them and lost in overtime to Kent State. Any of those three games, a
Yeah,
trade.
I'm looking at a first half minus 21 with Ohio and thinking that might be a play that they get up way ahead and maybe call off the dogs and keep it close. UMass on the road has been pretty abysmal this year, as well as home, but they've been pretty bad on the road, and they got blown out last week by Akron. Kind of Ohio, I would think would be, you hate to lay 33 in a game, but there might be a play just because of how bad it is. And I like the home dog in Northern Illinois a little bit. These games in the MAC kind of become interesting. They've been competitive in certain games, 3-7. You get a nice little price. I see 6 now. That's it. The Bowling Green game at Akron. Bowling Green's been up and down. Eddie George, they're doing a good job there, but I'm not really. That's a tough spot to look at. But if I take anything, I would take Ohio in the game in the first half. Thinking you put a bigger bet in the first half that they get up big and maybe call off the dogs. But I don't see how Mass can cover the 33 after what I've seen.
All right, relatively light slate from what I can gather here in college basketball, unless they're just not posting that many numbers on this little chart that I'm looking at. But you do have some marquee teams in action. Kentucky's going against Michigan State. They're favored by 5.5. Florida State coming off that good effort when they lost to the Florida Gators, who are highly ranked. They're heavily favored against UT Martin. North Carolina is 23.5-point favorite to Navy. You do have Duke and Kansas, normally a marquee match, favored by 10.5. Anything stand out to you on that slate?
Not really. I'm still feeling around in college basketball. I would probably say, you kind of lean a little bit toward the big price in Kansas, but there's a reason why it's 10.5. The odds makers know Duke's been pretty impressive early on in the season, getting a big win against Texas when they were down at halftime, coming back in the second half and covering. So, yeah, it's still too early for me to college basketball. I like to wait till get into Thanksgiving week and then you watch the Maui Classic, and then that gets you get a gear on those 8 teams as they play all day in the afternoon, and so I kind of like to wait at this point. When you're living in Vegas, it's easier there because all the information comes pouring in. But when you're digging here in South Florida, it's a little slower, and plus we gear these shows toward other sports at this point. It's hard to get a feel on everything. So, but we're sticking with our hockey right now, and in the NFL.
All right, and speaking of the NFL, week number 12.
Yep.
It's on our way a couple of nights from now. Buffalo Bills are going to be in a feature matchup there on Thursday night. 5-point favorites. I have them over the Houston Texans. Bills been a little hard to gauge, although they certainly looked good last week in running away and hiding in their last ball game. But and the Texans are always a little mysterious. Texans at home getting 5.5. Any early feel for that one?
Yeah, I kind of like Houston in this spot a little bit. We probably will get C.J. Stroud back. Buffalo again on the road has been thinking about the Miami game a couple weeks ago, and last week they caught a sleeping Tampa Bay team defensively, playing in a little bit different conditions than they normally are used to playing in. Got a short week, big travel. Houston gets a nice win with the backup quarterback, as hard-fought win as they do. Just getting the win doesn't matter how it works out to those people. Helped us if we had Tennessee last week. I kind of like Houston in the spot as a home dog getting 5.5, and a home dog on Thursday night's been pretty good this year for me. I'll take my chances with Houston in this game early.
All right, very good. Big Gunner podcast coming up at 10 o'clock right here on NoCountry.net. Anybody going to be guesting with you? You got Parcells on the show?
No, these guys stay away at this point. But, we'll just be talking a little bit about the game last week and kind of touch a little bit on base about what we're doing for a head coach, and then talk a little bit about where I think the team's going to head in the next 6 weeks, where, it's they're just going to have to look at their personnel. My opinion is there's a couple plays you can look at. The touchdown run where Deonte Banks doesn't give in. He's not really strong in the run game, but he's done a great job, we feel, with returning, where he blasts up in there when he's got the ball in his hands and looks like he's not afraid of contact. But when he's trying to tackle people, he's just not a real good tackler. And he was a guy we traded up in the first round to get, who's been an utter disappointment. We've had injuries in the secondary, which has caused a problem. But this week we go up against Detroit, not for the faint of heart. Detroit's 10.5, and I gave you that stat yesterday. Detroit is 13-0 against the spread, coming off a loss under Dan Campbell in the last 13. I kind of like Detroit in this spot, laying 10.5. Just the pressure. Our offensive line has been very, very good. This is the real complexion point. I'll end by saying this, and I'll talk about it. But our offensive line has been one of the better groups in the league, and our quarterback situation was really good until he got hurt. I mean, you would think this would result in some positives for this, and it's like everything else has collapsed. Where we weren't going into the season, we felt comfortable everywhere else except for those two positions. It's weird how it all falls
All right.
out.
I want you to send some video of Lou Brock to your boy Jackson Dart and let him go with that feet first slide that was so popular when Lou was stealing 100
Yep.
bases a year. All right, we'll look forward to that. 10 o'clock coming up right here on nofilter.net. And, of course, it's posted up there into perpetuity. So you can catch Mike Jones and the Big Gunner podcast. That's always a big hit with Giant fans and football fans around the world. I mean, worldwide attention for this show. So, Mike, we can't thank you enough for now becoming a part of our Tuesday edition of Bury Your Bookie. And we wish everybody the best of luck, all your plays tonight. I'll be listening to Mike screaming, "Shoot the puck! Shoot the puck!" What was that game you gave out? You had one that
Blackhawks.
Blackhawks. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Chicago Blackhawks tonight. Mike Jones, a special the $3 million Super Gold Seal Double Wheel Surefire Pick of the Century. Catch you later on No Filter, and Mike, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being with us. And
Thanks for having me.
to you guys out there, we'll do it again tomorrow. For Mike Jones, I'm Jeff DeForrest. Hoping everybody has a good shot today to bury your bookie.